My name is Greg Bogosian, and I love everything about New England. Each week, I travel the region with my film crew searching for adventure. And along the way, I visit the places and the people that make New England extraordinary. This is New England like you've never seen it before. This is the New England Traveler. In making this show, I travel all over New England. But today, I don't have to go too far. From my hometown of Beverly, it's a short drive in the Subaru to Salem, Massachusetts. Sitting on the coast in Essex County, Salem is a bedrock of historical events and is considered one of the most significant seaports in Puritan American history. Today, I'm making it my job to explore the best places to stay, play, and eat while in town. But I also want to learn about the history that put Salem on the map. In order to do that, I'm traveling first to the town right next door, formerly known as Salem Village, Danvers, Massachusetts, and I'm meeting up with the town historian Richard Trask at the Rebecca Nurse Homestead. I was on my way to Salem, and I had to stop to talk to Richard Trask. Richard, thank you for coming on the program.
You're welcome. It's nice to see you, nephew.
Yes, Richard is my uncle. I can tell you that of all the famous uncles through history, he is at the top of the list. We are doing an episode on Salem, Massachusetts, and you can't talk about Salem without talking about the witchcraft trials in particular. You happen to be an authority on that, but we're not in Salem right now. So tell me a little bit about where we are, what we're doing, and why we're here.
Yep. Well, we're actually in Danvers at the Rebecca Nurse Homestead. And although most people don't know this, Salem was not where the witchcraft began. It was Salem Village. Present-day Danvers was Salem Village back in the 17th century. And this is where most of the witchcraft began.
Well, I grew up in Beverly, Massachusetts, right next to Salem and right next to Danvers, and I have the privilege of being educated about this through middle school and high school. A lot of people don't. So tell me about the relationship between Danvers and Salem and how the fact that Danvers was formerly known as Salem Village.
Well, Salem town was founded in the 1620s, 1630s, and a lot of people didn't want to be fishermen or coastal people. They wanted to be farmers, so they came inland. And inland was the area that they finally called Salem Village. During the witchcraft era, a lot of the villages wanted to be an independent town, and that didn't happen until the 1750s. The town of Danvers finally was established. We have no idea where that name came from, but we were very pleased to get rid of the name Salem Village because that connoted some terrible things that happened back in 1692.
Salem, Massachusetts definitely gets most of the attention when it comes to revisiting the events of 1692 and the witchcraft era. Places like the Salem Witch Museum, the Salem Witch House, and other modern-day attractions serve as powerful reminders of a sobering time in American history while educating and entertaining the public at the same time. But it was here in Danvers, settled in the late 1630s by a group of farmers as Salem Village, where many of the historical events of the time occurred. That's ironic that Danvers would want to get rid of that name because now it is such a profitable business for the city of Salem. The hotels, restaurants, attractions, some of them authentic, some of them not so.
You know, Salem today is like the Disneyland of witchcraft, and we like to think of ourselves here in Danvers as the Smithsonian of witchcraft. What you have to do is you have to go back to 1692 and see the differences between the two communities. The witchcraft began in the minister's parsonage. Several children began going into all sorts of maladies which were very, very strange. They indicated that witches were hurting them. And the 500 people who lived in Salem Village became intimately affected by the witchcraft. They either had accusers or accused living in the family, or sometimes both. Salem town was affected by the witchcraft, but not as intimately as the village was. And for generations, people in Salem Village and Danvers just didn't, in polite society, want to talk about witchcraft. You recently took me to the excavation site. When was that discovered? 1970. 1970. When we discovered it, I went to the person who owned this property and asked them, would you mind if we dig up the backyard to see if we can find the house? Sure, bring in the backhoe, who cares? Yeah. And we eventually found tens of thousands of artifacts. And one that I can show right now is that is a very small eel spear. Because they lived very close to the coast, they would often go in the muck and try to find eels to eat. Eel may not be the most appetizing dish these days, but all this talk of food still has me hungry.
A little later on, I'm going to be heading over to 62 Restaurant and Wine Bar on Pickering Wharf to sample some of Chef Tony Betancourt's best dishes. Be sure to stick around for that.